Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Now, despite the fact that I'm a very conservative person, I think I've been absolutely right on when it comes to the dynamics in this Liberal Party leadership race to replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister. Because as silly as it sounds, when I've been saying that Chrystia Freeland is the anti-Trudeau candidate, it's absolutely right. Yes, she was the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister and walked hand in hand with Justin Trudeau in passing all of his awful policies, freezing trucker bank accounts, and all that sort of thing. She is running in the lane of being the opposite of Trudeau. And yes, her policies are basically still the same as Trudeau's, but that's how she's positioning herself. Mark Carney, who everyone knows is not an outsider, but he has not actually been literally in the Liberal government, but he is the Trudeau candidate in this race. Team Trudeau is obviously behind him. His campaign chair is Jerry Butts. Katie Telford is on his campaign. Justin Trudeau seems to be pushing MPs to endorse him. And despite all that, Chrystia Freeland still has more endorsements so far. But I have to show you something fairly remarkable. I never thought Chrystia Freeland was going to go guns blazing like this, but in a television interview, she actually roasts Justin Trudeau without naming him for a good 20 seconds here, going on about all the stupid moves he made at the very end of her tenure as finance minister. It's incredible to watch. Remember, all these people are awful. I do not like them, but it's good to actually see them fighting each other because at least with them fighting each other, it kind of exposes to more Canadians the truth of what so many people were pointing out about the corruption and incompetence of the Liberal government. But before I get into this clip, guys, remember, like this video, leave a comment if you notice anything you want to comment on. And if you're not a subscriber, and at least half of you are not subscribers, I look at my analytics. Most people who watch my videos are not yet subscribers. Consider going down and hitting that button, especially if you like the rest of the video. And now, without further ado, here is Chrystia Freeland on live television slamming her former boss, Justin Trudeau.
Let's go back to the disagreement you're having with the Prime Minister, because let's say you win this race. Of course, there's several people in the race right now. If there was a disagreement in your cabinet, how would you handle things differently? Like if your finance minister came to you and said, Prime Minister, I think we're on the wrong track here. How would you tackle that differently than what the experience you've had was?
And I will just say before she starts answering, this is a question that she could easily answer in such a way to not take aim at Trudeau. She could say, well, I don't want to talk about what has happened. I'm just going to say what I'm going to do. No, she takes the clear opportunity here to sideswipe Trudeau as hard as possible.
Well, probably I wouldn't tell my finance minister I was going to fire her the day after she delivered the fall economic statement. I probably wouldn't say that 3 days before she was supposed to deliver it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting note there.
Step one, right?
Yeah, step one. Yeah. Okay. But
and that's quite incredible that she's just admitting that, yeah, Trudeau's told her to her face that she was going to be fired after she delivered the fall economic statement and was just, I guess, cocky enough to assume that she was going to go along with it. And there has been a lot of stuff so far in Freeland's campaign where it's not usually as overt as that, but there's subtle jabs that Trudeau's no longer the prime minister and we need to turn the page, we need to move forward, whatnot. There's a lot of sort of jabs that Trudeau's been the problem. Karina Gould has kind of been doing this, but she does this vague thing of we've lost trust. The Liberal Party needs to re-earn trust, the implication being that Trudeau and the party lost it. But Freeland has actually been constantly naming Trudeau as a problem here, and that's where I think the battle lines in this race are all being drawn around. Are you still secretly in favor of the way Trudeau does things? Not on a policy level, they all agree with him on the policy, but do you want like the management style of Trudeau behind the scenes, or do you not? And Carney is the people who are basically trying to keep that management style around. And even at the rally that Freeland had, she did a lot of talk about like needing like leaders who are not as narcissistic, and we need people who actually listen and stuff like that. And you cannot detach any of this from the fact she's talking about Justin Trudeau. But now I want to show you a clip that's been floating around the last few days. It's not new at all. It's in fact quite old, of Pierre Poilievre going after Mark Carney in a committee meeting when he was the Prime Minister's economic advisor. Because this, to me, demonstrates that if Mark Carney becomes the Liberal Party leader, this guy is going to get absolutely squashed by Poilievre. This is Poilievre not even exactly on his A game yet. This is him pre-leadership destroying Mark Carney, because Mark Carney cannot stand by a position with any confidence at all. And also, he's a massive hypocrite, as Poilievre exposes here.
Do you support the Prime Minister's decision to veto the Northern Gateway pipeline, Mr. Carney?
I understand the veto of the Northern Gateway.
I don't want to find out that we're not on track to.
Oh my goodness, can we not have ads in the middle of my video, please, YouTube? This is what happens when you have to record on YouTube sometimes.
Do you support it?
Given both environmental and commercial reasons.
Do you support it?
I think it is sensible. I wasn't involved in the decision, but I think it was the right decision.
And yet your company has invested billions of dollars in oil companies in both Brazil and the UAE to buy pipelines. You bought billions of dollars of pipelines as a company in the last 5 years. Do you support those investments?
Mr. Poilievre, there is a global energy system, and one of the issues, I'm trying to explain a bit of how the economy works. One of the
Thank
issues,
you so much.
Well,
I love that. Mark Carney's such a smug jerk. He's like, I'm going to explain to you how the economy works. Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister of the UK, who was around when Mark Carney was the governor of the Bank of England, basically urged people, do not vote for Mark Carney in the Liberal leadership. He was not good for the UK. He gets a lot of artificial praise because Canada didn't undergo the same sort of devastation that the US did in the 2008 market crash. But that had nothing to do with Mark Carney. It had to do with the policies of the Harper government not having Community Reinvestment Act type policies like the US did in Canada that ended up having the government incentivize massive issuing of subprime mortgages, or they were going to put heavy restrictions on the banks. That's a hidden secret about the 2008 market crash in the US. It wasn't greedy bankers. Well, yes, there were greedy bankers involved. There were also policymakers who basically said, you better give out subprime mortgages or we won't even approve you guys being able to put down a new ATM. But this is crazy. Mark Carney's trying to make the case that, well, oil and gas needs and infrastructure determine whether or not you're allowed to have a petroleum industry. And that's what he's doing here. Well, it's okay for Brazil to have it. Well, it's okay for Qatar or the UAE to have an oil and gas industry, but not Canada, because we're past that now. This is like an actual, I find the term gets overused, but in this case, he is an actual globalist. He actually believes in basically that Brazil and the UAE, for reasons of equity or something to do with the environment, are allowed to have oil and gas products, but Canada no longer can.
It may help. One of the issues for this committee in thinking about a sustainable transition.
Do you support it?
Where is Canada's role in those as energy transitions from fossil fuels to renewables? And in different jurisdictions, into different geography, it matters. It matters, and this is a fundamental point.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. This is a fundamental. You're finally getting to a point that is relevant to this committee's inquiry.
What you're saying is you oppose pipelines in Canada, but you support them in the UAE and in Brazil. That's what you've actually said.
There are specific.
That's your double standard.
It is not a double standard.
It is a double standard.
No, it's not.
Don't worry, Poilievre. He has a very good reason behind his double standard, which is environmental geography. They can have it. We can't. They can have it because theirs are not as bad as ours, even though we have negative 40-degree winters in places like Alberta and Saskatchewan. And last time I checked, the UAE gets a lot of sunlight. So why do we need to invest in solar farms, subsidized taxpayer solar farms that do not generate that much energy in the grand scheme of things, but the UAE gets to keep having natural gas? Is it almost like Mark Carney just doesn't like Western values and the West in general? The guy is very much one of these international equity types. That even though the UAE is a very rich Middle Eastern country, well, the Middle East overall is a poor area. So it's okay for the UAE to have it. It's okay for Brazil, which is a socialist basket case most of the time, to have it, because they're not as well off. But Canadians need to take our lumps for economic or for environmental, for a revolution in environmentalism.
Make billions of dollars off foreign pipelines, and you shut them down here at home, putting our people out of work.
That you are a representative of the Canadian people, and one of your responsibilities, including at this committee,
is to fight for Canadian jobs, and not foreign jobs like you.
Exactly, to fight for Canadian jobs, and the types of Canadian jobs that are durable. And
the types of Canadian jobs that are durable. Okay, I'm just going to end it here. I hate that stupid talking point. Well, we need to shoot the oil and gas industry in the head. We need to really keep stepping on it with a steel-toe boot, because it's not durable. That's why we need the government to try and do everything it can through taxes and regulations to phase it out, even putting in place caps on emissions, even trying to put restrictions on where you can drill and do that stuff, because it's such a vulnerable sector. That's why even after all what the government's done, the oil and gas industry has still grown in spite of it. And you'll have these obnoxious know-it-alls on social media saying, oh, see, Trudeau is supposedly the most anti-oil and gas prime minister we've ever had. Yet look how much oil and gas has grown during his tenure. I'm like, yeah, the price of oil basically caused it to grow in spite of Trudeau. But if he was not here, our growth would have been far larger. This was like saying that, well, actually, John A. Macdonald was the most anti-oil and gas prime minister he's ever had, because oil and gas wasn't a big industry in Canada at the time. It's not about what the industry does that determines how we evaluate the prime minister. It's how the prime minister has affected the industry. And just because line goes up a little bit does not mean the industry has been unaffected by the prime minister, because our oil and gas industry has been lagging behind the US and other jurisdictions in growth while Prime Minister Trudeau has been in power. Our ability to export it into a more diverse group of countries to get the best price for our oil and gas has been significantly damaged by Trudeau. But he comes in here saying, oh, well, we need more durable jobs. Shut up. What are you talking about? Yeah, we need durable jobs like EV manufacturing jobs that Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau are having to subsidize, because they're such durable jobs. You need to literally pump taxpayer dollars into them or they wouldn't exist. Whenever I see people pull up charts and like, look at the investment in green energy. Oh, it's even outpacing oil and gas by rate of growth every single year. Okay, well, let's pair that chart with the subsidies for green energy chart. Oh, wow, they're almost 1-to-1. The growth in solar and wind is almost 1-to-1 with the growth in subsidies in solar and wind. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? I couldn't guess that it's not actually durable. I've seen charts, I've seen studies telling me that these are great jobs and that oil and gas jobs are bad. I only say this whenever I want to denigrate people who push themselves as like policy experts. I have a master's degree in public policy from the University of Calgary. Guess what? You shouldn't be impressed by that at all. All that degree taught me, it did teach me a few things. So it did have some benefit. I'm not going to go that far, but the main thing it taught me was I hate policy people. Policy people can convince themselves of anything through the dumbest metrics possible. They will pull up a study that shows actually the carbon tax makes things cheaper. I'm not even kidding. There are studies that people try and push that say the carbon tax has basically had no effect on food and other essentials. And really their mistake is that they use CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which basically just takes what $100 bin of groceries, what the average person is spending on groceries from one year to the next. Their typical basket of groceries, how much does that cost each quarter for the next 4 quarters? The Consumer Price Index is a scam, because if people used to buy steak and they used to buy organic eggs and they used to buy, glass bottled milk from organic grocery stores, and then they switched to just buying Dairyland milk, and which is, fine. I like Dairyland milk, but then they start buying like bologna and eggs that are just normal eggs, and they stop buying bread from like a premium bakery, and they just start buying like Wonder Bread. That is considered an equivalent basket of goods. And so if that $100 basket back in the day with more premium items cost $100, and now your basket of goods with sub-premium items costs $104, they'll conclude, in theory in this case, well, there's only been a 4% growth in the price of groceries. It's only gone up by $4. And then when they factor in all the things that would have made it go up by $4, well, it turns out the carbon tax only accounted for about 25 cents, 50 cents of that. So it's been a negligible effect. Yeah, sure, dude. And then it doesn't also have the fact, it doesn't include the fact that grocery stores and producers and will just eat the cost and they'll just make less money on certain items. And so that it's very deceptive. But these people put out studies based on theoretical garbage, and they will tell you something that you know is not true in reality. The taxes of the Trudeau government have made things harder to afford. But you will have some guy show up with his 45,000-page study telling you that you're actually wrong because he crunched the numbers, and it turns out that all the new taxes, the government spending, all this stuff has actually had a negligible effect, or it's not as bad as you think. I'm so tired of it. Anyways, that's my long-winded rant to cap off this video, but you will see more of this as time goes on. Chrystia Freeland is going to keep jabbing at Trudeau, keep getting that anti-Trudeau sentiment going, and Mark Carney is going to keep bear-hugging Team Trudeau and basically make himself seem like the fresh outsider face, but on the model of the Trudeau government. Freeland is still bad. Do not get me wrong. She's awful. If you were to buy a membership right now and vote in this Liberal leadership race, and if you don't have a membership, maybe do it. It's free. You can still, take part in democracy. The person I would genuinely vote for is Michael Clark. He's a pro-life Liberal running in the race. He's like a Toronto or a Metro Vancouver, Ontario area or Ottawa area organizer. Some like Liberty Liberal from back in the day. He's like a 90s like Christian pro-life Liberal who would have maybe been invited into a Paul Martin or John Chrétien government. And so if you're going to vote, I'd vote for that guy. And then Frank Baylis is probably the second least bad option. And then probably Chandra Arya, because I think that we should be voting for the most conservative Liberal in these races. Again, if you're not interested in voting, don't vote in it. I'm probably not personally going to vote because I'm already a Conservative Party member. But I don't want, because some people have this theory, we should want the worst Liberal to win because it makes it easier for Pierre Poilievre to win. Okay, well, that really shows that we're insecure as conservatives. I think Poilievre can beat any of them. I think he's perfectly capable of beating all of them. So we don't need to be scared that Poilievre's going to lose. And also, I don't think it's good for our enemies to be even more insane, because what happens if one day the Poilievre government's doing a pretty good job and they just trip and do something absolutely stupid and it makes an easy win for the Liberals and they have the most insane person. They have like Stephen Guilbeault running the party. Okay, well, that was fun that Poilievre got to beat Stephen Guilbeault once, but if he's still the leader by the next time, well, we're dead. Mark Carney is in favor of central bank digital currencies. So maybe let's not have that guy be one of the major party leaders and can influence the electorate in favor of CBDCs. By the way, myself and the National Telegraph were the ones who got Pierre Poilievre to actually make his commitment and put it on his platform that he will ban the Bank of Canada from passing a central bank digital currency or doing anything to pursue one, experiment on one, anything. They're banned. So we got that done through our advocacy. And so I do not want to see like a Mark Carney finger rise up in the Liberal Party who's going to mainstream radical ideas. I want the Liberal Party to be a party of people I don't exactly agree with, but if they get into office, I'm not going to have to set my hair on fire because they're semi-reasonable. Chrétien or Paul Martin Liberals. Anyways, so that's it for me today, finally. It's funny how I try and end a video and then I just go back into the video and I talk for another 5 minutes. But that's just what happens here on whatever this show is called. I think I always label it TNT Breakdown, which is super generic. But that's what happens on this show. Remember to like the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by mid-December. So help a guy out. Share this video, and I'll see you guys next time.